Hey, everyone. I'm your host, James Jackson, and this is ARCast. Join me each episode as we shine the spotlight on a category management or shopper insights professional doing compelling work in the trenches. If you're ready, I think this one's going to be super fun. Let's get in the trenches. I'm here today with Kaye Young. She's president of Consulting Insights and also chief research officer at InContext. Kaye, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I guess I fit both bills, right? Category
Yeah,
management and shopper insights. So there you
that's
go. Happy
exactly
to be
right.
here.
Well, as you're probably aware, we really go deep into your career journey. Sometimes I actually throw a little zinger out there at the beginning, but I think we'll have enough in talking about your career. So if you're ready, let's get in
I'm
the
ready.
trenches. Let's get in the trenches. So before we get into your career, though, let's step back a bit and talk about prior to your career and like college. What you studied, why you decided to go where you went. If you could share that, that would be great.
Sure thing. So I'll start with a little bit of high school. So when I was in high school, I was in the junior Miss pageant, and Sam Walton actually was one of my sponsors. So
Wow.
Walmart was one of my sponsors back then. And I have stayed close to the organization throughout my career, but learned a lot from that group, as you can understand. So, from that perspective, I then went to college. I went to the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, and I went there for one very good reason. I was married, and I'm not supposed to go off to college when I'm married and have a good time. So, I went to college to study. So,
Got it.
and I went through 4 years of college in two
Uh-huh.
years, maintained a really high GPA.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so I was committed to getting through, and I got a degree in marketing and advertising. And so loved every minute of it. And I will throw this out there because this I am older, and this happened before category management, before the advent of that. So it wasn't part of the curriculum, but it soon quickly became part of my curriculum in the 90s when it was launched.
Hmm. I have to ask. So you repeat 2 years instead of four. How
Yes.
did you how did you do that? Because I mean, even if you are focused, that's a lot.
When you live with your mother-in-law, all things are possible to get out of that house. I'll throw that out there. I took 21 hours a semester during the regular part of the year and 12
Wow.
hours a semester in the summers and graduated with exactly 120 hours. So it's doable because realistically, college is a great planning place for you to be to show potential
Yeah.
employers what you can do, but you really learn once you get in the job realm, and that was my goal, was to get out and get in the job
Sure.
realm, and that's what happened. Johnson and Johnson was doing an internship program trying to hire at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, and I got an interview with them, and I told them I'm not interested in an internship. I want a full-time job, and they
Mm.
stayed in contact with me and they hired me. So it was awesome.
So why J&J? Were there other companies that you were looking at? Um,
Lots.
okay.
So I had already been married a couple of years. My husband and I had lived overseas. He was in the Air Force. So we lived
Mm.
in Germany and lived with a German family and, done the whole thing. So I was a little more focused than I was when I first came out of high school. And was trying to put my college plan together. It's a bit different when you have experience. You're a lot more focused. So
Sure.
I had gone to school a little bit and then come back and rejoined the education
Oh,
realm. So that being said, there were a lot of companies that I looked at. Procter interviewed on campus, Frito Lay, J&J was the one that I really sparked to. The people that were part of the interview process were incredible, intelligent, and the thing that got me is that 35% of their sales force was women. And
really?
and back then, you have to understand that was unheard of. And so I knew I was going to be facing quite a bit going into the sales and marketing side of the business, but being there with other women made a big difference to me. So
Wow. Wow. So let's talk about that a little more. So you were in the South, correct? During your
always, yeah, until
yeah.
I was moved to Chicago. I was in Memphis, Houston, and then Chicago. Hmm.
So can you talk about being a woman in sales, hitting the stores, talking to,
Yeah,
store
it was
managers, what
fun.
have you.
I mean, back then you carried a bag, a detail
Yeah.
bag. You looked like a doctor walking in, except with a
Yeah.
bigger bag, and you had all of your tricks and trades in the bag, whether it be a merchandising shelf or point of purchase materials, whatever it happened to be. Back then, also, we didn't really wear a lot of pants. We wore more dresses. So
Mm.
every day
Mhm.
was an event putting pantyhose on. I'm just telling you. Thank God that's changed. But every day was that event, getting dressed, getting ready. So carried a bag, but also had quite a few direct accounts, as we called them, which were the ones that you
Okay.
called on, like affiliated foods and
Sure.
different places in Memphis and all there around there. So it was really incredible. It was a great training ground. I think the biggest thing, if I were to tell anybody coming out of college, why it's important to start with a large company, because you get a great base. You get a great educational base, but a great business base. And you may be a small fish in a big pond, but it prepares you to be a big fish in a small pond, which is what I launched to after J&J. So I give them all the credit in the world. They actually prepared me very well for what
Sure.
happened the rest of my
Sure.
business career.
I'm assuming that you might have run into a few challenges, and the reason why I asked, woman in the South, I have
Yep.
a former coworker that had experience down in Houston, and um, tough environment. But what did you experience when it came to that during those times?
It was difficult. I will say times are a lot different now,
Hmm.
and women look out for other women more so now than they did back in the day.
Okay.
But traveling was difficult. Just all kinds of things were very different. We drove most of the places we went. We all had company cars back then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we had large territories, and sometimes that took us out for several days at a time. But it was generally a man and a woman negotiating. The store people were usually male that we
Sure.
dealt with. I didn't really have a lot of issues because I pretty much laid out. I mean, I wore my wedding ring like a coat of armor. I was already
Sure.
married, so they knew I wasn't, out there to date. Um, but people were very respectful.
Okay. Okay.
So from that perspective, I would say that it wasn't that difficult. It was just a lot of time and effort and building up your rapport with the people out in the field and then your stature within your own organization.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
So, so with J&J, how long did you stay, and what were some key things that maybe you learned? Because obviously, your first go around is usually pretty instructive, and really kind of sets the
yeah,
groundwork for the rest of your career.
they really have an excellent program, and I've actually referred several people to them that
Mm,
they've hired subsequent to my leaving. But they actually have a great training background. Everything is well thought out. They learn from their mistakes. So things that happened in the past, they try not to repeat them
sure,
and move through with their staffing. Of course, it's totally different today because
sure.
there's everything is so many different departments. You can go into every different field, but at the time it was sales or marketing. That was kind of it
Got it.
coming out of college. But I'm very thankful for that. And it set me up for many of the other things I've done, owning my own businesses and selling them. I always revert back to the training because there were always some ground rules in place that you always play by.
Sure, sure. Okay, so you had a good career at J&J, but at some point you moved on.
I
Um,
did. I got recruited away. It was
yeah.
really incredible. I was living in Chicago, and many people will scream when they hear his name. I truly loved him. Chuck Jarvie was recruiting for a national accounts manager for a business he was starting, and he sent someone up to talk to me, and I took the job. And that's when I started becoming a little bit of a bigger fish and quite a bit of a smaller pond. And that's pretty much launched me into the broker management area where I managed brokers all over the US. And then I wound up managing all of the national accounts. And so when the company sold, they sold me with it. And I'm
Okay.
like, they just made an assumption I'd move back to Chicago. And while Chicago is great,
Yeah.
I have to like carry a thing writing down what I'm saying because people have a hard time understanding me because I'm Southern. Anyway, so just kidding. But so they kind of sold me with it. And when the
Yeah.
company came to me with a platform, I'm like, I'm not moving back to Chicago. And they set me up in business. They said,
Mm.
would you broker these products for us because you do 70% of the company's business? And I said, you know what, I will. And I started a brokerage business. So I really kind of stepped out on my own, wasn't
Yeah.
prepared for it, had one small child and another small child on the way
Oh my God.
at the time. So my kids are 2.5 years apart. So you can do the math on that. So a little bit entrepreneurial. I've always been that way mentally anyway. I've always thought of everyone else's business like it's my own,
Yeah.
sometimes to my detriment. But anyway, so that's how I started in the brokerage business.
Hmm.
And back then, back in the late 80s, early 90s, Walmart really couldn't get anybody to call on them for the
That's
grocery side of the
crazy when you
business.
think about
I know we talked about this,
that.
but up until the mid 90s, really people would say Walmart's not going to make it in the grocery industry. And I would be speaking at various things like the NFBA conference. I know Nielsen had some things I spoke at
Sure.
back during that time period. And people would laugh at me and say, Walmart will never be a factor and I will never sell to them. These big companies would tell me this because I don't want to anger Kroger or Safeway or, whomever it is. And I would be like, okay, so my brokerage business got really, really big because
Yeah.
I was almost a buffer between some very large companies and Walmart. And kudos to Walmart. They were very supportive and helped me throughout my career. And everything kind of goes back to that, to Sam
Yeah.
Walton back when I was 17 years old. So that being said, from that, we built a huge business. Walmart had asked me to come in and help them with global sourcing. I was a
Mm.
green badge, which means I wasn't employed by them, but we were paid externally by
Sure.
the revenues generated from the vendor community. And so I helped them with that and then was in house with them, representing products, helping them get everything situated. Loved it, loved every minute of it. And from there, I just always in the back of my mind, I had a list of 100 companies I wanted to start, different business ideas, different models. And so
Oh wow.
I know it's weird. I had thought of one because Don Harris, who used to be the president of Walmart, was my buyer back, I guess,
Sure.
in the 80s, sometime in the 80s. And he always said, your presentations are great and I love the way you present, but what can you do to help me get people to come to more categories in my store? And instead of spending 10 minutes, spend 20 minutes.
Hmm.
How can you do that? And that's what I did. I started a shopper marketing company back before there was shopper marketing, and category reinvention back in 1999. And it's weird, kind of on a whim and a prayer.
Yeah.
Started it, had a couple of clients come in, and then WPP backed me for which is, now it's the people that owned Kantar and all of that back
Sure.
before all of that divested. But it was an incredible experience, and that's how I got on the shopper side of the business.
So I have a
And during
couple.
that time, yeah,
I,
during
I
that
have a
time,
couple questions for
okay,
you before you get into. So one, let's go back to the brokerage business for just a second. What did you learn? Because you obviously knew how to sell, but
yeah.
what did you learn about running a business that maybe caused you to then say, I want to build another business?
First of all, no man or woman is an island, and
Mm.
you have to appreciate the people around you that you're working with to get the work done. Because my husband, children, friends, neighbors, everybody helped. I'm just throwing that out there, and so I relied on a lot of people.
Okay.
I will tell you, one of them, or two of them, actually were Gordon Wade and John Drake.
Mm.
Gordon, who recently passed away,
Hmm.
still was a friend of mine till the day he passed. We talked 2 days before he passed away, actually.
Wow.
But they had just started category management during this time. I was one of their first clients. So
Okay.
that's how we get. And then we've had
Yeah.
a business partnership. We actually have a formal partnership for over 35 years. So
Wow.
um, really an integral part of that. But John and Gordon, working with both of them, really helped me focus. They are 20 years my senior, and but they had been through what I was going through. So
Hmm.
having them as a mentor, both of them were, it's really incredible. And kudos to them for helping little me. I used to wonder why every day they would get up and call, and I'm like, why are they bothering with me? Just me, you
That's
know?
awesome.
But they were so, but I mean, there was a lot of give and take. I mean, we
Yeah.
helped each other and built businesses and did things together. But, I truly respect them, and I'm hoping I'm emulating them as I'm moving into
Sure.
my twilight years. How about that? So,
Sure, sure. So my second question is, you get into the shopper insights conversation. Um, Again, you knew how to sell, but
mhm.
shopper insights is a different muscle. So I could understand somebody asking you, "Hey, how do you have them stand at the shelf 20 minutes versus 10 or what have you?"
Yeah.
Um, but where did that come from? Where, I guess, one, you had the ability, and then kind of the gumption to say, "I could not only do it but build a company around it."
Yeah, I have a weird thing about retail. When I go into a store, it drives my husband crazy. He will
Yeah.
not go grocery shopping with me or shopping for anything. That's his excuse, is because I'm too focused on fixing things on every store when we go in there.
Sure.
But I could walk in a store down every aisle and say, this would be better if. And then I would
Mm,
write a long dissertation. That's how I started the company, is I used to send these long lists of things. This is what your product looks like. This is what it should look like. This
oh,
is, what your marketing should be. And I focused on, a lot of times companies would come out with these huge campaigns around the store, but the decision really to buy the product was made at home. And then the same thing, they would have, home advertising, whether it
sure.
be social media or, now, or TV or print ads, whatever it happens to be. But the decision is made at the shelf. And so I always wondered, like, why there was such a mix mash of different
Hmm.
media types, or, how you're going to promote your product. So I kind of focused a lot on that. But I can walk a store even today, and I'm like, my job is secure until the day I die, because there's so much still wrong at retail
Yeah.
that I want to fix. But
Yeah.
it goes even back to, I can't pass by a yogurt aisle without facing up all the product.
Mm,
And all the shopper work I've done, I do in-depth shoppers with very empathetic, where I'm ethnographically going into people's homes, shopping with them, looking at the way they do everything. And women are that way. We're
hmm.
very orderly focused. We're almost a little bit OCD. And every woman I shop with almost starts facing product up like I do. And so I laugh because I'm that person. And
Yeah.
so I think that's why I was so interested in the research piece, because it influences and impacts everything that happens at retail. You have to listen to your shopper. And I turn down business, don't tell my boss, all the time, with if people aren't willing to listen to what the shoppers want.
That's
And so
fantastic.
CDTs, consumer
Yeah.
decision trees, to me are imperative. Before you're doing a new reset or a planogram, how do your shoppers want to see it? And what are the
Mm,
reasons for that? What is their process in going to the shelf? And if you can lay the shelf out the way the shopper wants to see it, it increases sales. And so, I've written a couple of algorithms around shopportunity, is what I call it, and ROI at the shelf. So we know that's one of the different things with our virtual reality, our 3D
hmm.
process that we utilize, because we're at a 96% comparative value. We know that our shelf sets, as we have the shopper shop them online, we're 96% sure that the same results are going to happen at the store. So
Wow.
we can replicate that. We can tell you what your ROI is going to be. So before you implement and disrupt the store and, change everything, we can let you know if your planogram is going to work or not. And to me, that's the culmination of years and years and years of work. I've been working
Yeah.
so hard to get to this point, and now that we're here, I'm like, and my next goal is to actually make sure that everything that you see in store is shoppable on your phone. And it's not just a list of things. It's where your fingers can do the walking, and you're actually walking
Mm,
down an aisle and you can pick the things off, because it never fails. When I'm shopping and buying stuff online, I miss probably a good 25% of what I know I need to buy because they're impulse type items and I'm not
Yes. You're not thinking
interrupted,
about it.
disrupted,
Yeah.
whatever you want to say, about picking those up. And if I'm walking down the aisle, I'm going to see them.
Yeah.
So that's my ultimate goal. But I just love what I do. I've always loved it. I love the people I work with, both
Yeah.
from a client perspective and the people on the teams that I've worked with, and I continue to bring them back. You know, I've worked with the same probably 10 people for my entire career because we keep coming back together
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
get along so well. But yeah,
Yeah. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you were starting to talk about now that we have a kind of a grounding on your shopper insights background, the WPP, the
yeah.
Kantar situation. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, how I initially got involved with Kantar, great company, by the way, and truly respect everything they do and have done. And they truly helped me. So, I had developed this process, this shopper uh, category reinvention type
Sure.
process back a while ago. And I was doing some work for Walmart. And one of the heads in the marketing group said, Kaye, we love the process. We love the outputs because we put an ROI to everything. If you do this, your expected ROI is this. And for retailers, that's really key is
Yeah.
to lay out what the ROI is before they make any investment. If you go in and ask for dollars with no return there, they're going to be like, I don't think so. So anyway, they said, but you're one person and one
Mm.
person is kind of a scam. You can't do all this by yourself.
Oh,
And
wow.
they said, two people maybe, but not really, not for somebody as big as Walmart, but we'd like to expand your process here. And we have a couple of companies that you might want to look with and partner with. Take a look at. And I said, okay. And one of them was Retail Forward, greatest group of people in the world, just incredible. They used to be the old Management Horizons group, which was part of PwC. Um, and they had an incredible group of researchers that were all together
Oh,
managing projects. And this is where the MBI group came in. This is Shopperscape. This is all of that. So I was involved with those folks with my process, and it was really incredible.
hmm.
They embraced it. We grew it, and they had an incredible back room, like nobody's business. I mean, they had people back there to support any type of project work you were doing, which is just so incredible when you're in this business because that's the one thing you're afraid of. You're going to get all this work, and then, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, you know, we have to
Yeah.
have the people to do the work.
Yeah.
Um, but that was the critical mass, and that's where the research practice grew from. And so, Retail Forward was purchased by TNS, which was hostily taken over by WPP or whatever it
Okay.
was, and we all became Kantar Retail. So it
Got
started
it.
back in the day and then progressed that way. And I still talk to the folks every day. I just hired one of the guys I used to work with.
Okay.
So he's with us now. And like I said, the same people just keep,
The same group.
we revolve around each other. It's like a satellite system. So,
Nice. Nice. So you have that relationship. Where does Bellamy Research come into play?
so Bellamy Research, there was I was approached by them, very excellent group of people. And they wanted to start more of a research practice towards retail. So I went in there and helped them set that up. They had
Mm,
an existing practice that did some work in the retail forum, but it was mainly they were more around service industry, things like that, doing that type of research.
sure.
An incredible group of people, loved working with them, was there for a couple of years until Mike Skillingstadt, who
Yeah.
came and recruited me away. He and Gordon and John had a vision for the CMA, which is being put into fruition now. And I was the person they brought in to head up the shopper insights and research side of that.
Interesting. Okay, so CMA, let's talk about it.
Sure.
What did you do with the CMA? That's kind of near and dear, obviously, to my heart.
Um, well, you probably are still following a lot of the basic tenets that I wrote
Sure.
back in the day because we wrote just reams and reams of data,
Mm-hmm.
putting all the processes together. So the different, the best practices business unit, anything around category management. If you go back in your archives, you'll see all kinds of things that we did around storytelling, detailing category
Okay.
management, big ROI platform, all kinds of different things. Catman 2.0, we worked on all of that
Yeah.
before. Um, and all the Catman 2.0, the case studies were all mine. So I had done all the work in the past
Interesting.
that applied the shopper marketing and insights piece to the Catman forum that you see that's out there in Catman 2.0. So
Yeah.
we also did quite a bit of research for
Okay.
different companies that came to us that needed, because at the time, you're either category management or
A
shopper
shopper.
insights. Now
Mm-hmm.
everybody is kind of intermingled.
Right.
But at that time, it was kind of a new thought and focus. And so we had quite a few companies that came to us to help them integrate that piece of
Got
their
it.
business as well.
Got it. Got it. So I'm just ticking off all these different stops you've had
Yeah.
along the way. One of the next one, I'm familiar with it through food service, but obviously it's beyond that. But 1010, what
Oh,
was that
oh,
experience?
So, incredible. They needed some help. They actually had built a process that could integrate all kinds of data. And this happened, actually, they started because I think when 9/11 hit and all the computers went down,
Mm.
they had to recap all the data so that Wall Street wouldn't fail. And they were the people that put all that together.
Oh, I didn't
Really
know
smart
that.
group of people. So they had integrated all kinds of data, and they had a process that came in, and that they were the purveyor to Sam's. They
Yeah.
brought in all the data, and so I helped them understand the platforms and help them write to the different businesses that they were going after. So,
Sure.
what's the difference between a retailer? What's the difference between a manufacturer? How did the manufacturers all differ? How do the retailers all differ? What do the different platforms need to look like? What are the inputs? That was the key thing
Sure.
that I really worked on quite diligently, was all the inputs that go into the data feed so that everything is there for people at their fingertips that they need. And it was as much culling out as it was bringing in, because there's a lot of data out there that doesn't have anything to
Yes.
do with the, decision making. So loved it. And actually, one of the guys I worked with there, I got his daughter on at J&J, and I know you're going to edit this out, but she's another one. So,
No, that's okay.
anyway,
Nice. It helps to have a network.
yeah, yeah,
So we're moving along your career. You've done sales. You have the brokerage business. You get into shopper. Now your next step is going back into brokerage with Acosta, and there's some relationship with 345 somewhere in
yeah.
there. Can you
So
speak to that?
sure can. So Ashley Taylor was an EVP at Walmart, and I did some project work for her there. And
Mm,
she was the COO at Acosta. So she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to upscale what we're doing in the shopper marketing, business insights side of our business. We, need to do a better job. We've had some clients that have asked us to upscale our tech,
mm.
and can you come in and help us?" And I said, "Sure, happy to."
Okay.
And she's another one that we just keep evolving around each
Yeah.
other. So anyway, the same names keep coming up. And so I went in there, and it was just right before COVID. And so
Mm,
I went to a CMA conference in Dallas.
yes.
Okay. And so I was shopping for new insights, new technology, anything that would join together category management and insights. There's so many new and different things that
Yes.
emerge every day. And that was the CMA conference was one of the showcases for that. That's, where people normally would go to look for that. So
Hmm.
got there, probably knew 90% of the people there and loved it. It was like old home week. Um, but ran into Mark Edwards. And Mark and I had worked together at Kantar when he had
Mm.
Red Dot Square, and I had just become familiar with him. And I had helped him. There were some Walmart and Sam's meetings that were helping. They had an office in the Kimberly Clark office in Northwest
Okay.
Arkansas, and I got a couple of teams to go over and view his his red dot square product. Well, anyway, he was there and he had new technology and he showed it to me. And I was kind of blown away because I
Hmm.
looked at it and I said, everything you have in your data feeds and on this table, he had them on these massive tables. I said, these are the things I've been doing by hand, that Gordon made me do with a
Oh,
slide rule and an abacus is what I laugh about. But anyway, and I was looking at that and I'm like, oh, this is more automated and it's more automated than most of the other things I've seen. So I talked to him a couple of times and then I got up about 10:30 that night. I'd gone back to the room and I couldn't sleep. And so I
wow.
texted him and I said, I need to talk to you. Can you meet me down there in the morning? He goes, I'll meet you right now. So we went back out to the tables and we talked. And I said, I know you're trying to, get investments or, whatever he was looking to do. I said, can I have you come to Bentonville?
Mm,
I want to put you in front of my management and can you come and do a presentation?
sure.
And he said, sure. So the next week he came and I don't know how many people started in the room, but by the time he finished, it was packed. You couldn't get any more
Wow.
people in there. He's a very dynamic speaker. And so everybody was on board. They invested a substantial amount of money and we built out an internal um, center of excellence in the whole middle of the building. I mean, we designed it. It was
Wow.
beautiful. Dave Shoei and I worked on that quite hard. And it was just an incredible piece of work and we loved working on it. And I then would do all the research for 345. So that's kind of how that
Okay.
happened because I
Okay.
have a research, a background.
Yeah.
And so it was something that had kind of been missed. He had done some partnerships, I think, with Nielsen and maybe someone else. But the actual research from the constituency at Acosta is what we were really going for.
Mm,
So not only do we have technology that's new and different, that's important to the client base, but we can also bring in their research and do the research for them. And so we did that. And he also had a partnership with Wakefern, and I managed the research for that as well.
okay.
Did. And so when 345 and Acosta decided to part ways, um, they asked, Acosta was very nice to me. I'm just
Sure.
going to say they were a very outstanding company. I decided to leave because I just didn't feel comfortable staying since that's
Sure.
what I was there to do.
Sure.
You
Sure.
know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
knew, and they were finding a place for me, and I just didn't want them to feel
Yeah.
they had to do that. So Mark asked me to come over to 345, and I did, and I managed that business for him over there as well.
Okay.
So
Okay. And now, final stop.
yeah, I
You're
thought
at
I
a
was retiring. I thought
yeah.
I was retiring, and Dave Rich pulled me back in. He called me a
Okay.
few times just to talk, and you know, um, then asked me to come in and help him upscale his offer, his
Yeah.
insights offer, and then later told me I always knew I was going to pull you in and have you run this side of the business for me. And I'm like,
Nice.
okay, because that's how Dave's mind works. And so that's why I'm here, loving it. And I have my first grandchild, so my retirement was
Oh,
short.
congratulations.
So I was still doing project work on my own, but
Oh,
now I'm
jeez.
back, still working my 80 hours a week like I always have.
Oh my
So there
God.
you go.
So, what are some big things right now in context? What are you guys working on? What's the vision of the future?
Oh, lots. I've mentioned to you what my ultimate goal is
Yeah.
to, build it out so that we
Yeah.
actually are everything to everyone. We're not like trying to replace, say, Blue Yonder, the old JDA, or
Sure.
anything like that. We accentuate. We're their virtual eyes and arms.
Got it.
That's what we are to them. But we're a research and consulting company, so we're
Mhm.
bringing in more of that consulting and a deeper research than they've had in the past. Currently, we have an agreement with Albertsons to be the research arm. So, as I
Oh,
mentioned
wow.
earlier about the ROI and
Yeah.
testing and all that. that's what we're doing. So we're trying to
Beautiful.
make their business run smoothly and be less disruptive at store.
Sure.
So they'll know what's happening before it goes out to store, know what the ROI expectation can be for any of the changes they're making. One of the things I was working on with Gordon right before he passed away was we were writing a transferable demand model to go into my category reinvention process
Mm,
that I've had for a number of years. And so that's something I hope to bring to fruition in his honor and make that inclusive for everything that we do. So not only we have an ROI, but you'll know immediately what the impact is on profitability, moving product from one place to the other, and
sure.
um, all of that. So
Wow.
that's what I'm doing now. A little bit busy, but
Just a
good.
little bit. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Kay, this has been fantastic. You walking through your career and all the different experiences that you've had, all the things that you've innovated on and brought to the market. We've been in the trenches quite a while. So if you're ready, we're just going to take a breath and come up for air. Finally, coming up for air. So, last couple questions, super informal, but more to learn about you. So, can you talk about your family? Obviously, we talked a little bit
Sure.
about the South, but maybe give some background on you, and that would be great.
Sure. I am an Army brat. I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, but grew up in Norfolk, Virginia. My dad
Mm.
taught at the Staff College at Little Creek. He was in the Army, as I mentioned. He retired. He was in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam twice. So and was a POW as well. So a
Oh,
little bit of a
wow.
different upbringing. And so, from my perspective, if I'm not 30 minutes early, I'm 15 minutes late for everything I do, because
Sure.
that's kind of how we were raised.
Yeah.
And so, I have six siblings. There are four girls and three boys, two sets of twins younger than me, and an older brother and sister.
Oh,
We
jeez.
lost my mother about a year ago,
Oh,
and she was 95, wonderful, vibrant person, always wanted her kids to go to college. Majority of us went and got degrees and some even upper level degrees. I've been married. This is our 49th year,
oh
49 years.
boy! Congratulations again. Yeah.
And so the fact that I just have one grandchild should frighten everyone. And yes, she's old, and yes, she has everything in the world that any child could have. But so we're thrilled with
Yeah.
that. We've lived all over the world. My husband was in the military. He was in the Air Force, as I
Mm,
mentioned. And so we lived in Europe for a while and then back in the States. And, I've taken you through that journey, but
sure.
we go back frequently. And when I was doing the sourcing work for Walmart, spent a lot of time in Europe during that period as well.
Okay.
So went back and visited. So we still have a very strong relationship with the families that we were around when we lived there, and still get together
Yeah.
almost every year and,
Oh, wow.
do things like that. But
Okay.
I have two sons,
Okay.
36 and 34,
Yeah.
and they love life. They didn't have a choice. They went to college. I made them. I never let them think they could do anything else, but that's
Yeah.
okay. That's the kind of mom I am. And they're each other's best friends, and we get together every chance we can. So,
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Last question for you. You've obviously seen and done a lot of things. But if somebody who is listening was thinking about what move should I make, or what path should I take, what kind of advice would you share with them?
okay. This one's pretty easy for me because I teach at a couple of universities around,
Okay.
and I get that question a lot. Everyone that graduates college isn't as fortunate as I was, and they don't have people, recruiting them and trying to get them to come to work for them. It's kind of bleak for a lot of people.
Hmm.
But excuse me, I will tell you, category management as a curriculum,
Mm,
we have more people leaving the industry than we have joining the industry. Um, there's a job there for you. It's a wonderful job. It's great. It's interesting. Every day is something different. And if I could give anybody some confidence in moving forward, I would say take as many category management classes as you can,
hmm,
because sales and marketing and research and all of that come into play. But there are jobs that are called category management, and they're about 25% over and above what you would normally get for a starting salary. I'm just telling you.
Nice.
Because
Yeah.
I've helped companies recruit from colleges
Yes.
for this. And I would say do that, incorporate that into your business acumen. Make sure that you're taking something that has to do with category management and do an internship, as many as you can, because you really don't have work experience that relates to the job you're trying to get usually, but
Right.
your internships will put you there.
Yeah.
So it shows that you have that determination to move ahead and move forward. So
Awesome.
those two things.
Great words of wisdom. Thank you. All right. Well, Kaye, this has been excellent. We appreciate your time and sharing all of
Sure.
these paths along or steps along your way, and wishing you the best at InContext.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Have a
Yes.
wonderful day.
You too.
All
You
right.
too. So you've just listened to another amazing episode of ARCast. Please look forward to more interesting people like Kaye in the weeks to come. And also, please don't forget to share ARCast with your colleagues. If you have any feedback, topic suggestions, or please, we would love to have you on the show. Please go down to www.catman.global/ARCast. All I need for you to do is scroll down to the bottom. There's a submission form there. It comes directly to me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Today's episode was produced at Studio Xerxes in Minnesota, and our theme music was brought to you by Bryant Lowry. And a special thanks to my friends at the Association of Retail and Consumer Professionals for their promotion and management. Well, that's it for today. This is James and Kaye signing off, and we will see you on our next episode. Bye.